Hey ghouls and gals, welcome back to my channel. My name is Taylor and today's video is going to be a weekend reading vlog. Now I am starting this vlog a little bit early because it is Thursday, but I have today off. So I figured today would be the perfect day to start this little challenge that I'm imposing upon myself. Today is December 17th, which means this year is almost over, which is crazy. It just really snuck up on us here. The end of December especially can get a little crazy, and I've realized that I am not really on track to hit my Goodreads reading goal. So I figured this would be the last kind of weekend where I could really buckle down and read as much as I can to try and get back on track. Now listen, my Goodreads challenge was to read 120 books this year, and that was just based on an average of books that I read per month from the last couple of years. I normally read about 10 books a month. I've read 114 books so far this year, so if I don't read another book this year, I'll be fine with that number. That's a really good number and I'm proud of it, especially as someone who, like, the past 3 years I've really gotten back into reading. Before that, in like later high school and college, I didn't really read so much. So no matter what my number is at the end of the year, it's a lot more than I had been reading previous, so I'm happy with it. Just want to make that disclaimer, but I just think it would be really nice to hit that 120 books just because, number one, I said it, so it'd be nice to say that I achieved one of my New Year's resolutions, especially in 2020 where nothing went as planned pretty much for the rest of the year. And then also, I do have books that I would like to finish this year. So it's not just that I'm going to be picking up random books that I'll think will be short or that will help me really hit my goal. I really want to finish some books. There are a good amount of books that were on my 2020 TBR that I haven't gotten around to, and now it's the end of the year and I'm wishing I would have gotten to them. We are going to take this weekend and kind of see how many books that I can read from Thursday to Sunday. We'll end this vlog around Sunday night and we'll just see what happens. So my number one priority for this weekend is I would like to finish Plain Bad Heroines by Emily M. Danforth. I am pretty much 60% of the way through this book. I'm on page 396 and this book is about 600 something pages. I'm loving it. I think it might be one of my favorite books of the year, so that's why I really want to finish it this year, so I can count it in that number. So that's why I really want to finish that one, just because I have a feeling it could make my favorite books of 2020 list. As for the other books that I'm working through at the moment, these are kind of lesser of a priority for this weekend, but more of a priority for December, because I like going into the new year not being in the middle of a bunch of books, just so I can really start 2021 off as like a blank of slate as possible. So I am still in the middle of, surprise surprise, Christopher Paolini's To Sleep in a Sea of Stars. I don't know how far I am in the physical copy because the audiobook is far superior, at least for me, with this story. So definitely I'm not going to try and really finish this one this weekend, but it is an option if I'm feeling like an audiobook that's readily available to me. And then I also have The Living Dead by George A. Romero and Daniel Kraus, and this one I'm actually a little bit farther than when I last listened to it because I'm listening to the audiobook from my library as well. So I'm on page 262 of this book, and this book I think is another one that's like about 600 pages. Yeah, like 600 pages. So again, this one isn't one that like I'm going to really prioritize because I think putting 3 huge books on this weekend TBR is a little much, but I am really enjoying it. This one I definitely don't have to go through as fast as the other ones because it is a story told in like a very almost like an anthology sort of format, but not really. It's about the zombie apocalypse and it's following about 6 different people as they discover this is happening and what they're doing in the events leading up to it and then during it. So it's definitely one where you can read a couple of chapters and then when it goes to a new character you can kind of put it down and not feel like you have to really race through because it is a different story that you're entering into. So those are my books that I have prioritized finishing in December, but I have so many audiobooks that have come in on Libby at the moment. It's definitely kind of a downside to using that service, just because like regular library holds, you have to wait for them to come in, and sometimes you're waiting on all the books to come in, and then other times, like me, that just started like yesterday, they all come in at once. So right now I have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So right now I have like 10 different titles on the Libby app that all came in either Tuesday, Wednesday, or today. So I definitely have options, which will hopefully keep this vlog a little bit exciting. But I think right now me and my partner are gonna go get some Starbucks and go pick something up. We're still finishing up some last minute Christmas shopping. And then the rest of the day, all that I have on the docket is Animal Crossing and read. So there you have it. I am hoping to finish a book every single day this weekend. I think that would be a really fun, not completely unattainable, but like a little bit of a stretch to try and get. So let's just say that, including the books I'm in the middle of already, not to make it too crazy, but I'm gonna try and finish a book every single day. So we got 4 days of this vlog. We're gonna finish 4 books. Let's do it. So it is late and I have not finished a book yet, but I am on track to finish 2 tomorrow. I might finish 1 tonight though. We'll just see. But in Plain Bad Heroines, which is the book that I'm really prioritizing, I am on chapter 40 out of 50, and I only have about 4 hours and 30 minutes left of the audiobook, which is really good. And that means that I'll probably finish it soon, but I was looking for like a task to do while I listen to the audiobook, just because I'm finding when I sit down to listen to an audiobook, my mind wanders, but if I'm doing another task, I can actually listen to it and focus on it more. So I think what I'm going to do is do a little bit of bookshelf rearranging. As you can see behind me, this is primarily the bookshelf that I film in front of. It is a half bookshelf, and it is like my Stephen King bookshelf unofficially, just because I have a lot of King books. But this is the Stephen King bookshelf. So I have them in mostly publication order. So I've got a full shelf there, a full shelf there, and then pretty much a full shelf down there, with the exception of some Joe Hill and some Paul Tremblay. I think I am going to move these tonight, because on the other side of my room, so over there is that bookshelf. On the other side of the room is this white bookshelf. This bookshelf was very kindly gifted to me by my mom, who had it made for her by my grandpa. So he made it for her, she gave it to me. I have been using it for a while, but my little sister really needs a bookshelf, and my mom promised if I gave her this one that she would buy me a full-sized new one, which, you know, I'm probably going to get this back eventually, but my sister doesn't need a full bookshelf, and my mom would rather buy a full bookshelf for me because I need the space of a full bookshelf rather than buy a new half bookshelf when we already have this nice one right here. So I need to find a place to put all of these books, which is a little bit tricky because I don't have the new bookshelf yet. And I am planning on clearing this bookshelf off and then giving it to my family this weekend and dropping it off. So I just need to find a space for all of this, and we do have a full-size media bookshelf downstairs, which I do have some books on, and then some video games, as well as like movies and all of that, because it's like right next to our TV. I'm thinking I might go ahead and move either some of these or some of my Stephen Kings onto that bookshelf. So I think that's what I'm gonna do at the moment while I am listening to an audiobook. So let's just get after it. it's been like an hour since I last updated you guys, and I am almost done with this audiobook. Not quite, but I really do need to get to bed because I work tomorrow morning. So honestly, if I wake up at like a reasonable hour before work, I can probably finish the book, fingers crossed there. And then I did actually finish my reorganization of this bookshelf. I will show you the downstairs one like later possibly. That one is definitely not to my satisfaction, just because that one we're going to wait for our second bookshelf that I'm getting instead of my half bookshelf over there, because then they'll be like on either side of our TV as like an entertainment system. So I don't think I'm gonna show that one just because it's like not done and I'm not like pleased with it. Honestly, this is a very temporary setup as well because I am waiting on that bookshelf. So, but I was pleased that I got everything to fit. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you where everything is. So as you can see, this bookshelf is emptied, which was what I was trying to accomplish. And then this is the completed half bookshelf that I'll be filming in front of. I kind of did some small changes to the top of it. No one can see that though. That's just for me. We've got a lot of like my more classic Kings here. The bulk of my King collection I did move downstairs, but some of my hardbacks aren't like standard hardback size. They're like the book club size. So I put them there, and then just some of his older covers as well. The older covers, and then my annotated copy of it. And then going down here, we have just some of my favorite sci-fi fantasies, just because I thought that would be good instead of just having King as a background, to kind of have a more diverse sample selection. And then this bottom shelf no one can see, but it's like kind of a TBR sort of shelf, kind of books that just looked good aesthetically together. And then just like my paperbacks that stacked really nicely there too. So, and we've got a little tiny bit of room to spare. So yay, that is the bookshelf, and now I am really gonna go to bed because I need to. So it is Thursday, and I did finish my first book of this weekend reading vlog today, and then I started another one. So we are definitely on track to finish one book a day. So the first book that I finished, of course, is Plain Bad Heroines by Emily M. Danforth. I loved this one. Now, that being said, this is definitely not a book that I would probably recommend to everyone. This book really, really worked for me. I don't think it's going to work for everyone, and that's okay. Just a brief kind of litmus test on whether or not you should probably pick this up, or not should pick it up, but whether or not it would be a good fit for you. And I'm just going to use a book that is very different but has a lot of similarities for all intents and purposes with this comparison. But Mexican Gothic was a really popular modern Gothic horror novel that was released this year. So if you thought that was too slow, and if you thought it like had a really great atmosphere but just not enough plot and momentum to keep the plot going, this definitely has those same vibes, and it is like double the length of Mexican Gothic, and I would say it's a lot more slow. It's a lot more character driven than Mexican Gothic. So I think those are very important things to consider when picking up this book, because I thought it was really wonderful. It really worked for me and the types of stories that I really enjoy. This is one of those books where you look on Goodreads and the things that people are saying about it, like a 5-star review and a 1-star review of this book could be saying the same exact things. I think it's very polarizing just depending on the types of tales that you like. I think another good example to kind of compare this to is The Haunting of Bly Manor. If you thought The Haunting of Bly Manor was too slow, not scary enough, and more of a study on relationships between different characters, not just romantic, but just relationships between people, you're going to find a lot of that in here. So again, if you really loved The Haunting of Bly Manor, you're gonna find a ton of similarities. Not similarities in terms of plot or what is happening in the book, but just in terms of a heavy gothic atmosphere. It is a horror book. I don't think you're going to go out of this being scared. I definitely wasn't. There is some really nice unsettling scenes sprinkled throughout this, but it is gothic horror, so it is very much dependent on atmosphere and just a slow, unsettling pace to set the horror tone. But I really loved it. Very gothic, very atmospheric, very sapphic. There's a book within a book, there's different timelines. It feels very much like a meta horror movie at times. I just absolutely, this really worked for me, and I'm really happy that I got to read it. The book itself is gorgeous. I'm trying to find one that isn't too much of a spoiler, but there are full page illustrations sprinkled throughout this book. So it is really fun to read as well. It also has like some footnotes sprinkled here and there throughout, which is a fun reading experience, at least for me. I really enjoy books every once in a while that have that format. But I also switched back and forth between the physical book and the audiobook. The audiobook, at least where I am, is on Scribd. So I really like, especially with like very atmospheric pieces. Now this is like a modern Gothic, but especially with classic Gothic literature, I do like, if I have the means and like the audiobook is available for me, I like having the physical book and the audiobook at the same time, just for classics in general, honestly, but especially books that have a heavy atmosphere. That format works really well for me. I'm not going to like go out and buy a book twice, but if I rent the physical book from the library and I want to buy the ebook, that is not really typical for me, but if I have the physical book and I can find the audiobook through Libby or Scribd, then I'll definitely try and check that out, especially for larger books. It just helps me. That was the first book I read, and that one was very lengthy, and I really loved it. I think it's going to be a very tough act to beat within these next couple of days, but I did start another book again that I really wanted to get to before the end of the year, and I just haven't gotten a chance till now. So the book that I picked up for today is Tender as the Flesh by Agustina Bazterrica. This one, I have a feeling that it's might have the chance to creep me out and unsettle me just in terms of horror. This is a horror novel, or maybe novella. The audiobook's 6 hours, which is a shorter audiobook, but I think it's just a book. I don't think it's a novella at that point. This is a story, I believe, set in the near future where a virus goes around the globe and it turns animals bad. I haven't gotten very far into it at all, about like 10 minutes into the audiobook, but a virus infects all the animals on Earth, and it's essentially kind of like a rabies or just something very deadly, so humans can no longer eat their meat, and even animals like domesticated animals, dogs and cats and everything, what have you, are also just being killed en masse because this virus is very deadly, and if like they scratch or bite a human, something like that, then the humans get it and they die, and they can't figure out a solution. And there is no cure for this. So all of animal kind, I believe, which you kind of have to suspend your disbelief just on like a biology standpoint. The Earth can't really survive with no animals but us. This is a near future where humans are the only animals on the planet, and we have resorted to eating humans instead of eating non-human animals, and I just think this is going to get under my skin for a lot of reasons, just because number one, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of body horror in this, and body horror is typically in books the type of horror that icks me out the most, and then secondly, I'm a vegan, so I don't even eat non-human animals, so I am very intrigued in this concept. I have really enjoyed, from what I've listened to it so far, it does seem like there's a lot of propaganda going into it too, because like obviously humans can survive without eating meat, so I'm curious to see the deeper explanation for why humans are eating other humans, because it's obviously not for just like an altruistic, we have to keep the human species alive and going, because you don't have to eat meat to survive. So I'm definitely not trying to get on a soapbox or anything, but I definitely think this horror has the chance to really unsettle me, just because the concept of eating meat just as a whole in this timeline right now just grosses me out, and I don't do it. So I can't imagine then just exploring this and just exploring human meat, and eating human meat is just disgusting to me. So I haven't heard a lot about this one, honestly, even though I have heard a lot of buzz for it. It's one of those books where I feel like a lot of people just go into it saying, oh, this is a really good horror book, and recommending it. You get like a basic synopsis and that's it. I have a feeling, based on what I've listened to so far, it's going to be very smart horror and like social commentary horror, and definitely not just like a slasher body horror, which, don't get me wrong, I love like just a good old fun slasher romp, but I have a feeling this is going to be like just a little bit more of like a social commentary dystopian as opposed to just body horror for body horror's sake. So I am intrigued, and we will see. I'm trying to finish this one tonight. I haven't played Animal Crossing yet today, so my plan is to really engage in the duality of man by playing Animal Crossing and engaging with like the most wholesome game in the world while listening to a novel about state-sanctioned cannibalism. So it's going to be a very interesting and fun Friday night. So it is Monday now, and I have not updated in a while just because, well, Saturday and Sunday ended up being like way more chaotic than I thought they were going to be. So I'm like extending this challenge out a little bit because I've only finished Plain Bad Heroines in this challenge. I am in the middle of quite a few books on my phone. So I'm still reading Tender is the Flesh. I'm really enjoying that one, but I can't like sit down and binge it because it is very graphic and very disturbing. And it's definitely not the type of book, at least I can binge read, because it is a horror that is really getting to me. And then I also picked up at work, which I thought I was going to finish yesterday. First, We Make the Beast Beautiful by Sarah Wilson, and this is a new journey through anxiety and just different ways to kind of help cope with anxiety in everyday life and just make your life better and kind of combat different side effects and things that you experience as a result of anxiety. And I am really liking it. What I really like about it is that it does talk about more natural ways in terms of thinking techniques and ways to restructure the way you think about things, and like breathing techniques and stuff like that, which is really helpful. But I also like that this book isn't like ditch medicine, only go like natural, because I just feel like that's a very shitty mindset when self-help books are like, get rid of pills, because that's not really helping yourself. You have to do it mentally, which just for some people just isn't possible. So it is nice to have that as not these things as the only way to combat anxiety, but different ways to help you with that in addition to medication if you need it, which I really like, which I feel like self-help books are really terrible about doing, is being kind of anti-medication a lot of times. And obviously sometimes that can really help. So I'm enjoying it. I thought I was going to finish it yesterday because it was a floor set at work, and that is for anyone not in the retail world, where my store on Sunday nights, the store will close, and then some employees will stay behind. We'll redo the tables and the walls and everything and change it with the changing seasons to put new product out on the floor. So I normally listen to an audiobook during that time. It's a pretty long shift, and usually if you find a good audiobook, it helps it go by a lot faster and you also finish the audiobook. So I was planning on doing that, but my headphones, even though they were fully charged at the start of my shift, like died and wouldn't turn back on, which was really unfortunate because then I had nothing to do and I just had to sit there with my thoughts. Jokes, like I played music out loud, but I didn't want to play like an audiobook out loud. I just feel like that's very different to play over a speaker or to just play on your phone as opposed to music. So I just listened to music, not typical for me. I normally listen to an audiobook, so that was frustrating. And then we're supposed to get done at 11 p.m. and we got locked in our mall. It was me and 3 other women, my coworkers, and we got locked in the mall. We have an exemption form to stay in the mall that late, and there is mall security who's supposed to come and let us out because they lock the doors, which I mean is kind of a fire hazard, because I understand locking the doors to the mall, but our mall has a parking garage on the underneath of it, and that's where all of our cars were. But we cannot get to the parking garage without security coming in and locking that door for us so we can get to our cars. We called them. Someone said they were on their way at 11 p.m., which is when we finished. No one came for like 20 minutes, called again, no answer, called again. They finally directed us to a door in the mall that was actually broken so it wouldn't be locked, and said we could try and go out that way or we could just keep waiting for them, which is frankly a little ridiculous. So all in all, my shift ended at 11 p.m. I left the mall at midnight and then got home at like 12:30. So, and then I had to work this morning at 9:30. So yesterday did not go as planned. It was not fun. I did not finish any books and I just felt very flustered the whole day. So I'm going to extend it for the rest of today and then also Tuesday as well because I don't work tomorrow. So we'll try and see both today and tomorrow if I can just finish those 2 books that I've been working on so I can still say that I read 3 books in this vlog because that was my original goal. But that is today's update. I am going to go relax now, play some Animal Crossing, listen to an audiobook, have some fun. Alright, so it is finally time just to conclude this vlog because it's gone on a lot longer than I initially anticipated. Like I mentioned before, it's supposed to go Thursday through Sunday. I ended up extending it so I could get a little bit more reading in, and I did, and it was a really productive span of time. So I'm just gonna quickly sit down and go through all the books that I read in this kind of weekend, kind of week. Who knows what I'll end up titling this vlog? Probably more like a weekly vlog once I get down and count out all the time. But the first book that I finished was Plain Bad Heroines by Emily M. Danforth. It is right here on my shelf. I'm not gonna pull it out. I did talk about this book in length, I think the most out of any book in this vlog. Highly recommend it, 10 out of 10. One of my favorite books of the year, honestly. And it was definitely one where after I finished it, I didn't think it would make the list. I was unsure about it, but the more time that I spend away from it, the more I find myself thinking about it and thinking back on it and wanting to reread it. So that's a sign that it is going to be at least one of my favorite books for this year. So highly recommend that one. The next book that I finished over the course of this vlog was First We Make the Beast Beautiful by Sarah Wilson, and this one I know I mentioned at the beginning that I was enjoying it. I didn't end up enjoying this one as much as I thought I would at the start of my reading experience with it. I did think it was pretty good to start, but it ended up being very disjointed. There weren't really any chapters in this book. It was like a numbered list of things, and it just kind of kept going from place to place, and it ended up being quite contradictory at times. For example, like I had mentioned before that I was enjoying this one because it wasn't demonizing medication and demonizing ways that people go to professionally get mental help. Sometimes this book did have a couple of statements thrown in that really did feel like it was demonizing people that decided to take medication, like it was encouraging it and saying not to take it out as an option, but like almost that it was a stronger option to not have to rely on that, which is not the case. So again, there were like a lot of things like that where I wasn't really sure where the author felt because she kind of mentioned both things and acted like both of those were like tenets that she lived her life by, which was a little confusing. I did think this book was very privileged at times, just with some of the advice that was given, especially in like the holistic part of everything. Like not all of us can afford to go to retreats and fix our minds that way, go out in the middle of the night if we can't sleep and feel anxious and walk around. Like that's just not safe or doable for all of us. Or to just get rid of your car so you can walk everywhere and feel more holistic that way. Obviously a lot of these things are things that not everyone can do, and I guess I didn't know that going in, but Sarah Wilson is popular. I think she's like a blogger or like a TV personality, something like that. So definitely I felt that in this a lot, where obviously I'm definitely not discounting her struggles because it definitely does seem like she has a lot of really bad experiences with anxiety and depression and OCD, but at the same time, a lot of the things she was able to do, not a lot of people are able to do. I did have some things that I enjoyed and I think I will be able to use for myself. Just not everything, so it just wasn't as helpful as I thought it would be, but I didn't find anything truly wrong with it. It almost just felt like a series of like blog posts or like articles on a website as opposed to a book. So I don't know, definitely not my first choice. Definitely not my last choice. I think it really depends on how your anxiety manifests, whether or not this would be a really helpful book for you. And then the next book, I am not done with this one, but I am going to talk at length about it because I only have about an hour left in the audiobook, and that is Tender as the Flesh by Agustina Basterrica, and this is excellent. It hits a ton of things that I think are just so wonderfully done in the horror genre. I mean, it makes you disgusted, it creeps you out, it is unsettling, it is sad at times, it is exploring so many different things and using a horror story to explore things that are happening in our day-to-day world and just doing it really well. It's hard because I want to give like a longer synopsis than what I gave earlier on in this vlog, because I think that it is a much more expansive book and a much deeper book than just the quick little synopsis that Goodreads has for it. Really gives it credit for in a way, but on the other side of things, I feel like that would really spoil some of the reading experience of this book if you knew some of these things at the offset of the book. So I think it is a very interesting journey to go on. Obviously, this one definitely has a lot of trigger warnings. There is death, miscarriage, torture, graphic depictions and descriptions of carnage, animal abuse, animal death, murder. It is following a futuristic world where humans are eating other humans because there are no more animals on Earth. So instead of pigs and cows and chickens in factory farms, it's humans in these factory farm conditions, and following our main character actually works at one of these factory farms. So it's also really exploring, you know, first of all, how messed up that concept is and how disconnected and terrible the industrialized meat packaging industry is for not just the animals. Obviously, I think it's terrible for the animals, but for the people working there, just thinking about the amount of violence that they are subjected to every single day and what they have to experience at their jobs, and then they have to go home and pretend like everything is fine. There's a lot of exploration about that too, and that is something that is happening here, just because it's not humans that these factory farms are killing and dismembering and preparing for food every single day. The people there have shitty living conditions, and I think that is something that has been brought up in the news this year, especially in terms of COVID, how these people who take these jobs, obviously it's not a job that anyone would want to do. It's a horrific job. So people who are taking these jobs are really like desperate. They just need a job. They need to find a way to survive. So they take these jobs, and then the companies really just care about profit and how much meat they're generating instead of safer conditions for the workers and safety conditions and keeping their workers safe. So a lot of that is explored here, and I think if you want to explore some of those things, I think this book is a very smart way to do so, and I really enjoyed this one. And I'm really glad that I got around to it. Like I mentioned, I'm not finished with it, but I only have about an hour. I really don't think that the ending is going to like change the way that I think about this book just based on how far I am in it, but obviously I will keep you updated in my December wrap-up for my thoughts about that one once I finish this book. I would recommend this one as an audiobook also, just because it is a translated work, and I definitely feel like with a lot of translated works there is something a little bit missing from just taking one language and turning it into another, and just the style of how people tell stories in different areas of the world. But I think the narrator did a really amazing job of bringing the story to life, and maybe I felt at sometimes during it, if I were to read it, I would feel more lost and not as immersed in the novel as I would have listening to it, just because of those cultural differences and just the different way different cultures tend to write narratives. So highly recommend the audiobook of that one. And that is going to be it for this vlog. That is all the books that I read in this weekly stretch. I did get around to some books that I've been meaning to read for a very long time. I also picked up a couple other books, but that'll probably be in the next vlog if I have another vlog before the end of this year, because that is rapidly approaching. But that is going to be the end of this video. If you liked it, please be sure to give it a thumbs up, leave a comment down below, subscribe for more content from me, stay safe, stay spooky, and I'll see y'all on the other side. Bye!